in the bed with the hair in the mouth. I watched how they actually had to
Oh,
make that scene.
that was such a scary scene. And it was like
Yeah.
there was one of those it was one of those jump scares where you knew it was coming. And it's coming, but it's gonna get me. And then it did. It's like, oh
Yeah.
God, it was so.
Welcome in everybody to HTGS Reviews. I'm excited to review today's movie. I've been wanting to do this for a few months now. But as always, I'm your host, Rob Coakley, joined by Dave Wilkins
Hey, happy to be here.
and Jesse Wilkins.
Hey there.
And I couldn't wait for you guys to watch this movie. I actually went and saw it in theaters. I just watched it again for this review. I'm excited to hear your takes on it. I have a feeling I know one of you probably really like this. I'm not sure about the other, but without further ado, Dave, why don't you just jump in and give us a synopsis of Together? Also, spoiler warnings. And if you haven't seen this movie, I would go in as blind as possible. That's my two things before we start.
So stop while I do this synopsis, go watch the movie, and then come right back for the analysis. And this is Together, directed by Michael Shanks, 2025, starring Dave Franco and Alison Brie. Married couple in real life. Years into their relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads when they move to the countryside, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious, unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. So I think you probably told us that you saw this in theaters, Rob, back when you did see it in theaters, and I had completely forgot. I was just watching this one night after we actually did an episode, and I was just, kind of unwinding watching a spooky movie, and I'm like, this movie's great. Like, we got to review this. And I texted you guys, I'm like, we're reviewing this next. And you're like, great, I already saw it. I'm like, oh, I thought I discovered a cool new one. But I love this movie. This movie was the first movie in a long time that actually gave me the old school creeps like I used to get when I used to watch horror movies back in the day, when you weren't sure if a jump scare was coming and the tone was so spooky that you just got the chills and you're ready for it. And then the jump scare comes, even though you know it's coming, and it still gets you anyways. And I say that while caveating, this isn't a real jump scary movie. There's a couple of good ones that are well earned, but there's just certain scenes in this movie. And I'm not even talking about the body horror stuff. I'm talking about a couple of scary scenes that are unsettling and spooky in like a ghost story type movie way. And this was not a ghost story, but this was a good movie. This was an allegoric movie, which, sometimes movies do that well and sometimes they don't, depending on, or not even really depending on what the message is. And I don't care if it's a message, whether you agree with it or not. If it's well executed, I appreciate it. And this one, I think the allegory was well executed.
Yeah. Jesse, do you have some opening thoughts before we really dive into it?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It was a movie that, body horror type movie, but you didn't really know what it was going to be about. I mean, the poster kind of ruined it a little bit, where you see their lips stuck together in one of the posters. So I was like, they're going to get stuck together. But it wasn't. I thought, because I hadn't seen any trailers, but I did see the poster, I thought this movie was going to be, they're going to get stuck together and they're going to have to figure out how to live their lives with their lips connected. And I thought it was going to be a really tough watch. I was like, this is going to be stupid. And I was glad it wasn't that. I was really glad. You got that in after they spend the night in the cave and their legs are connected. I'm like, here we go. They're connected for the rest of the movie. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Don't kiss, because then your face is going to be. I'm like, how are they going to do this movie? And they didn't do that, but it was pretty wild. A few predictable scenes. I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you guys watched it, I thought I think his name was James. in the movie. He was like the one other character. There wasn't a lot of characters in this movie. Jamie, I guess it could be James. You know, I know the guy, so it's James. But his character, like as soon as you were introduced to him, you're like, he's too nice. He's the bad guy. And that twist obviously happened. So it wasn't, I thought that was extremely predictable. But other than that, I didn't really know where this movie was going to go, especially when they kept separating themselves.
So I agree that it was predictable that he was going to be a bad guy. I didn't know he was going to be like the antagonist. I thought he was going to be like a love interest for the wife. That was going to be a conflict. That's where I thought that was going.
That's what they were leading you towards throughout the movie. So that's what I thought the first time I watched this as well. And this is a great second rewatch movie. A second on this, you kind of pick up. I'm not going to say it's like one of those movies where you pick up like a ton of new things, but you definitely see some stuff in the second viewing that you're like, oh, it wasn't really like that at all. You can kind of, you see more like what the character is actually reacting to rather than what you think he is throughout that with that character specifically. So that's why I'm glad I watched this a second time and then just try to remember from my first viewing of it. It was a nice perspective to get rewatching this. And I'm with you, Dave. Like, yes, this is technically a body horror movie, and I think that's sort of. I watched a couple reviews on this. Not that I usually watch reviews on movies we're gonna review, because I don't want to be like led a certain way. But I was sort of curious with this one in particular, what other people thought, and a lot of people did pick up on like the allegories and all that stuff. But a lot of people just leaned into it being a body horror movie, from what I was seeing, and like. Yes, obviously that's there. But to your point, they do so many other things well. And they do some stuff in this movie that they are really towing a line. Because if they did it a little bit too much, it would have just come off as super tacky and unnecessary. And the thing I'm talking about the most with that is the stuff with his parents.
Which what they did do was very effective.
So effective.
Yeah.
And if they had even done just like a half second more almost, it would have lost all meaning. Right.
Yeah. Because the mother could have been too cartoonish if you got too much monster there, and she wasn't even technically a monster. But the way they told that part of the story was so effective. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because that original first scene was so scary. I was like, that was so good.
It was so good, and they pulled back on it. It still meant something throughout the movie because of what these characters are going through. But man, that could have just been. I was thinking, like, you know what that could have been is like when they go overboard in some of the Insidious movies, right? Like, because some of the Insidious movies have these insanely creepy scenes, but then they just try to lean into that too much.
Yep, it could have been Cobweb, and I liked Cobweb, but I think that's what you would have ended up with if you went too much of that with this. And although I still liked Cobweb, I know that you didn't for this exact reason.
Right. So, like, just the fact that they hit all these different types of horror movies within this and people focus on the body horror portion, it's suspenseful. It's unsettling. You said unsettling. Like, that's the biggest thing to me is this movie is unsettling. They use, and I noticed at the second viewing, just some of the tight face shots they did on the characters just gave you like an extra creepy vibe. Like you just sort of felt sick to your stomach the whole time watching this movie, even on scenes that you knew were like, nothing's probably going to happen here, just because like some shit's going to come. And you're just going to be like, I don't want this to go any further. Just keep having a dialogue scene, please.
Yeah.
Because it can really catch you off guard when they start hitting the high notes in this movie.
Yeah, and it wasn't like what was that body horror movie, the big one that we did recently with Demi Moore
one, the Substance, I think.
Yeah. So that was body horror, right? That was like full on 100% jump in with both feet body horror, and this was also absolutely body horror, but it was sort of more like a like an accent that they used, right? It wasn't the whole movie wasn't all body horror. Where they used it, it was very effective, but it wasn't all body horror. There were other aspects that I liked. And what I'll say about this movie, particularly, it was well acted, but mostly is the character development was phenomenal.
Yeah.
With the runtime wasn't anything crazy. It was an hour 42, and the amount of character development we got, possibly because there weren't that many characters, but the characters that were in it were very well developed.
Yeah, the two main characters, you get an arc for both of them, like just equally, like an equally satisfying arc for both of them, in the terms of what you're going through, like the roller coaster of emotions and stuff like that. And I think watching this, we all know these couples in real life, where it's either people that are sitting on the fence about where their relationship's going to go, or people that, you know, have been together for 10 years and they should have only been together for 2. Right? Like it, and they just couldn't figure it out, but they stay together because it's comfortable, but they resent each other for staying together. Like but should they, like, there's so many different ways to take these sort of relationships, and you kind of go through the gamut of all of that with these characters. He's resenting her because he blames her for holding back his big dreams, but he probably was never going to make that anyways, right? So she was actually probably just propping him up and giving him inspiration to at least try to continue to do it. And then she's resentful for that reasons in the end. Like, I mean, we've seen the story a million times in real life, and they tell it so well, and it doesn't feel like, what I will say is the director, who also had a hand in writing this, like, you could feel that, like sometimes you can just feel like the writer, like, writing from experience rather than thinking they know about a subject. And I thought that was very important for the subject matter that they were implementing here. And I know that, like, interviews with the director, this came from his life, basically, like, and that's what he wanted to convey. And I thought he did a great job conveying those emotions throughout this movie.
Yeah, I didn't know that about the director, that he based it on his own life, because there were, I mean, we kind of hinted at it. There was, I think, obvious.
What the hell happened to him in a cave?
Yeah. But yeah, so there were, we kind of referenced the allegories that were, I think some of them were pretty obvious. There was the allegory for, obviously, marriage, and I think there was a pretty blatant reference to Plato's Symposium, which is a story from like 400 BC that he wrote. And in the story, he is like the symposiums were in ancient Greece, were like these house parties, basically, that you would throw, and all of the philosophers and people would come over, and they'd drink a lot, and they would, you know, tell stories. So in this symposium, Socrates was there, and he gave a little story, and then Aristophanes was there, who was another philosopher under Socrates, and he told a story. And the story he told was about the ancient Greek myth of the original humans. And the original humans that were created under Zeus were basically like amalgamations of two people that had, you know, they were like this, you know, they were one and had 4 arms and 4 legs, and they were much bigger and stronger than the humans that existed after. And the gods got kind of scared because they said, these humans are going to get too strong. So Zeus took a string and he separated them. And now you have 2 separate humans that were off in the world somewhere, and then they had to find each other. And these were like soulmates, right? So every person who was separated from their soulmate had to spend their life trying to find their soulmate. And I think this was a pretty clear reference to that story. And it's an allegory for marriage, basically.
They tell that story in this movie.
Yeah, no, it's a good story. I have the book over there, but it's pretty cool. And so, like, the allegory is for marriage, right? 2 people are, you know, when you marry somebody, your life isn't separate anymore. You have now, it becomes a new life where the 2 of you are sort of living the same life. And the longer you are together, the harder it is to separate. So, yeah.
And it's also codependency is you know, they're just hitting on on both sides, like the good and the bad of this stuff, and trying to figure out is it worth going into marriage, or are you just holding on to something that shouldn't even be held on to?
Before we get too far off this, you know what's funny about this? So these were common. They would have these parties and they would drink a lot. And a couple hundred years after Socrates died, I believe he died in like 399 or 400. There was another philosopher who came along, and he wanted to continue with these parties and continue to philosophize. But the problem was that like everyone was getting too hammered and they weren't making good points anymore. So he created the cup of justice. Have you guys ever heard of the cup of justice before?
No.
So I hadn't heard of this either until I was in a Greek museum, and they showed me the cup of justice, and they actually had a guy who worked at the museum, and he was demonstrating how it worked. And basically it's a cup of wine, and if you fill it above a certain line, the whole cup, there's a trigger mechanism that will cause the entire thing to just dump out on your feet from underneath the cup. And it was to regulate the drinking and to promote drinking in moderation. Now, there's an easy workaround, which is you just fill it up more times. But it was because
so these parties, basically, they were, like you said, after Socrates, they had to regulate them because of that exact reason. This was one mechanism that they'd use, but the other, the host of the party was controlling how much everybody would drink and at the rate of which they would drink. So they were very controlled. And I think the cup you're referencing was just part of it.
Yeah, that was created by Pythagoras, who was a philosopher who came along shortly after Socrates.
I'm going to start bringing the cup of justice to investigations.
Pythagoras was, I believe, hundreds of years before Socrates.
Oh, actually, yeah, BC. I got to read the years backwards. He was before Socrates. So this cup might have been in play when Socrates was there. Maybe,
it could have been. But yeah, he was the one who came up with the Pythagorean theory in mathematics.
Yeah, that's what me and Rob were thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I remember. I'm not even going to get into it, but is that the 1 + 1 is 2, and then 1 + 2 is 3, and then?
No, that's the Fibonacci sequence.
Fibonacci sequence.
Okay, I was going to go back to sort of that, because the way that I pronounced Pythagoras is much different than the way that you pronounced it, because I've been studying Greek for the last 3 years trying to learn this. That is the way that you actually say it in Greek, but the way that you guys say it is the more common way to say it. Would you say like Pythagoras or something like that? That's the way you would say it, but more commonly in the English language. But because I've been studying my damn Greek,
I wasn't accusing you of mispronouncing.
No, but I was accusing myself because I panicked. I was like, wait, did I just completely butcher that? And it turns out, no, I said it the way he would have said it, but more commonly in America, you would say it the other way.
Get off your fucking Trojan horse, Jesse, on your pronunciations over there.
Okay.
Anyways, you
guys want to talk about the movie? Yeah,
we're reviewing the movie together. We talked about the opening scene with the parents and how terrifying that was. The next one that really, okay, I'm gonna go through my notes real quick, because one of my big issues with this movie is when they first get to the house and he's like, "What's that smell?" And he goes to the light fixture and he opens it, and his decision is to just bare hand reach in there to grab whatever's in the light socket without seeing it. What are we doing? Like, how are you barehanding that? Like, oh.
Well, he picked up like a bubble wrap or something like that to pick it up, but after
he had already fingered around and grabbed a couple rats. And it made it worse when he tells the story about like when he was a kid and his father had that happen, like it had happened in his bedroom. It's like, so this is a possibility, and you still went in there with some bare hands to grab some dead rats? Come on, bro. Be better. Be better than that. That's insane. That I was just sitting there. I was like, oh, this is so gross. What are you doing, buddy? But yeah, so that was one of my problems, was him reaching up and grabbing a bunch of dead rats. Very, very insane. And then just a lot of stressful shit happens in the bed with the hair in the mouth. I watched how they actually had to make that scene.
That was such a scary scene. And it was like, there was one of those jump scares where you knew it was coming. And it's coming, but it's going to get me. And then it did. It's like, oh God, it was the lighting in that scene was perfect, because that's another one where that's a scene where if the lighting wasn't perfect, that it would have been really stupid, right? Yeah. You had to be sort of obscured by the darkness. You had to kind of squint to be like, what the fuck am I looking at? And then when it does come on, it's so scary.
I'm guessing that's purposeful too, because they couldn't do that practically, like in terms of, well, I mean, it's not CGI, but they couldn't have him actually eat her hair, obviously. So they had to build like a cast of him, like of like his face and stuff. So I'm sure the lighting played into that, but it looked great. It looked so good. It was terrifying.
It probably looks better than it would have if they tried to have him eat her hair, and because like he looked like a corpse, which was part of what was so scary, right?
Right.
And
Yeah, and I was glad that they went in and they explained like the nightmare sequence that he was having, because I was sitting here and as I was watching this movie, I was like, what is with the nightmares? Like this wasn't making sense because they hadn't even drank the water at the time because there was nightmares that predated that part of the movie.
right.
And I was like, are they just doing this to be a horror movie? And then they explained it later on as to why he would be having these flashbacks. And I was like, oh, okay. It was like multi-layered, because that really had nothing to do with the whole water in the well and the cult type thing that would happen at the end of the movie. But yeah, that one, as I was watching, I was like, I don't know if this makes sense. I feel like they're just trying to make it a little bit more scary, but eventually it did make sense. The writing in this movie is great. The acting was an absolute home run. No points off for acting whatsoever. There were a couple of lines early in the movie that I thought I had issues with the writing with, where it was another one of those movies that had a few throwaway lines that didn't have to be in the movie. And it was like, let's go over here, like one of those lines that just didn't need to be there. Not that line exactly, but there was a few of them where I was like, the writing's not gonna be great in this movie because it was early on. But then it was just great the rest of the way. Acting absolutely phenomenal. I didn't know that Alison, Brie, and Dave Franco were married in real life. But now that you tell me that, that's the most obvious thing that I've ever seen, because they completely had that chemistry. Like when she was so fed up with him, I was like, I feel like they've been together for years, because she is acting so fed up with him. I was like, oh, she is fed up with him. Like now it's all making sense. And it was the acting was great. And one of the greatest points in this movie was when shit goes down one night and they actually start like combining, and right before the next morning, right before she cuts them apart, she stops and she's like, just, I want to apologize because it turns out you were right. It was like the most obvious thing ever. And it was a hilarious moment. And it was a character arc moment where it was like, okay, she's no longer like, you're crazy, you sound like a crazy person, there's something wrong with you. I was surprised that earlier when he like shows up all sweaty and they have that scene in the bathroom, that she didn't, I don't believe she did, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that she wasn't accusing him of like using or something, because he looked like an addict. Like that scene in the bathroom, I had a little bit of an issue with, just because of how unlikely, like it's just, there's no way. Kind of. But I will push back a little bit on that, because of course, like she wouldn't want to risk her job.
Yeah.
She wouldn't want to, they would probably lock the door first if they were actually planning on doing it.
Dude, yeah. I mean,
I agree.
Let me make the case before you.
Okay, go ahead.
People who haven't seen the, I know people like to watch our reviews and not necessarily watch the movies. So what happened was they were having trouble in the bedroom for a little while, and it was frustrating for both of them. And then they started to have this weird phenomenon happen where when they were getting closer together, there was this like weird attraction thing. I don't mean like a love attraction. I mean like almost like a magnetic physical attraction that was started from drinking this water from a well, and or a cave. Anyways, so he's supposed to go off on a business trip, and she's got this brand new job at an elementary school with young kids, and she's like third day in. And when he's supposed to be leaving for his trip, he comes back because he's like, oh my God, I need to see her. This weird attraction thing was happening. So he goes to school, he's sweating, like Jesse was saying, he looks like he's using. He goes in and he finds her, and she's like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And she's like, come here. And she pulls him into the bathroom. It's a kid's bathroom. She pulls him in, and he's like, we got to do it right now. So they go into a stall and they just go at it in the stall. And I just found that to be so not believable. And it's for all of the reasons that you would imagine, right? She's going to be like, what the hell is this? You look like you're on drugs, number one. Number two, I just started this job. It's an elementary school. This is an elementary school bathroom, and it's the kids' bathroom, and they didn't lock the door. There's just no way.
Do you want to push back on this, Jesse, or do you want me to?
Not really. The only point I'll bring up is that at this point now, you say that they were having trouble in the bedroom. At this point, it had been months, and she brings that up. So it had been months since they've done anything in that way. And
Doesn't change it
again, still not practical, still plenty of reasons, but I'll let Rob jump in.
So the way I interpret this scene is, as of this point in the movie, the only person that had been showing any effects from the well, theoretically, was him.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one showing the effects. I think this shows you that she's having those effects as well.
That's a great point. I was going to go there, but I was like, you know what? Let Rob jump in here.
That's what I think's going on here. Is like, I think this is the first time that you see that it's affecting her as well, because this is not a situation
She
that
didn't
you would
drink
think she would.
the water.
She did.
She didn't.
I thought she did.
She still had the effects though, Dave. Like, I mean, she came to the door later in the movie
after they had sex. And that's what I thought that was the actual catalyst for her experiencing.
Could have been from kissing too. Like they had like
kissing,
heavy
yeah.
making out scenes where they're.
He filled the thing of water too. You don't know if she was probably drinking it throughout the night. They should have made a point to show that she drank it, I would say. But I think she's starting to
I had gathered that he drank way more water, and that's why it affected him more. But I think she drank some.
Yeah, my problem was they only showed him drink the water. I had assumed that she didn't drink the water because they didn't show it. And then they were only showing him having the effects up until that bathroom scene. And then she started having the effects after. So I had assumed that it was the sex in the stall that infected her with the same thing, because there had been nothing prior to that. So that's why I had an issue. If it was the case that she drank the water, then sure, that does make sense. But the reason I took issue with this was because that was not established. And I thought that there's no chance that would have happened. She would have been like, what are you doing? Get out of here.
Right. Well, that's why I think that they're showing that she's, in my opinion, that's my interpretation of the scene.
I think it's more so your interpretation, because even if it had been months and they were trying to, get that back in their life, she would have been like, let's just leave right now and go.
I mean, because they were attached in the cave together, so they both had an effect at that point in time.
Yeah, which is very early on in the movie. So,
right,
solid point.
So I think that's your first hint that it's both of them, and then when it's her as well, that shit's scary as hell when she's on the other side of the door, banging her head into it, and he's like standing on his toes, and she's levitating.
Yeah, that was really, there was that. There were a few scenes in this that really I thought hit the mark for giving me the heebie-jeebies, and that was one of them. The very first scene with the parents, that was another one, and then the scene with the hair were like the three, and none of them were really body horror, except for maybe the hair one, possibly. But then some of the body horror scenes were pretty good too. The big reveal at the end with the couple that had gone missing, and they show up at the end there.
Yeah,
was the amalgamation, and I thought that was pretty well done. Very scary stuff. Love body horror.
Before we get to that and the end, I just want to go back to the scene that Jesse hit on in the kitchen when they first like kind of fused together for real, and she had to take the saw out and saw them apart. My favorite shot in this movie, like just from a filmmaking standpoint, is right after that when they're in the kitchen and they're both sitting with the way that this scene was set up. He's sitting on one side, she's like on the other side, and there's that counter in between. I thought that was the best shot like in the movie in terms of just like cinematography. I thought that looked great. I was like, wow, this shot is amazing. I really like the way this shot looks. I don't know if I would have ever come up with that specific shot, and just kudos to the director for that, because it looked awesome. That's my little nerd out moment on cinematography there.
Yeah.
But then we get into the end. We get the big reveal that the cult is a thing that happened, and I hated this moment for one particular reason, and that's the fucking bell. His bell at his door is the bell that was in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
And she touches it. She should recognize it. She should be putting two and two together from the first time she goes over there, like when she's not in a panic. And Dave Franco's at the house at one point. How are we not putting this together? How are we not seeing this bell? You pointed out the bell in the cave. how are we not making this connection? I think they should. I just think it was. I think they were doing that. That's one of those things that they threw in the movie to throw in the movie, and it's like this is nonsense.
They could have thrown it in and had the characters not acknowledge it, right? And that could have been more believable, right? The fact that she acknowledged you're saying she acknowledged the bell on the porch.
She didn't acknowledge it, but that's my point.
No,
she touched it.
Did she touch it, or did she not acknowledge it, or did she touch it?
No, she interacted with it. Is my point, because that was his doorbell.
Yeah, right.
But she didn't act like she had ever seen that bell before, and it's clearly the same bell, like bell design that was in the chapel.
Right.
So what are we doing?
Yeah. No, they could have done that better. I think if they could have put it there as an Easter egg for us, but you can't have the character acknowledge it or interact with it. Right.
Right.
And then, so yeah. I mean, when Dave Franco's character showed up, he was like cracked out and hiding in a bush. So I don't know.
Yeah. But she shows it. She sees it twice. We get the reveal that he was part of the cult. He's actually him and he's been one that's fused together with, there's two of them. There's not just him. I don't like that when she hits him, his face morphs. I think that gives too much away. Like, what are the rules there? Because it's not like she hits him.
We can give it away at this point, right? I mean, we're here.
but to us, you can give it away. But like, you're making it easy for him to be revealed in the real world. Like, accidentally hit a post or something, a ball hits him in the face. You know what I mean? Like I just think that that's kind of lazy just for a shot in the movie. I don't think that you should be doing that.
Maybe.
I don't like that.
I mean, if the rule is, I guess you're right. That would be hard to conceal. Like, that's the weird teacher whose face morphs sometimes.
Sometimes he has two voices.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that. I did like him in this cave with the couple that you mentioned. I like seeing the other end of that story unfold, where, one of them decided to take their life mid transformation, and what that ends up looking like, because that's terrifying.
Yeah.
You don't want to live in that cave.
No.
At all. And that, looking like a Resident Evil character. So terrifying. Yep. And then they decide to morph. They have the joint decision to come together at the end of this movie. And I despise the last 45 seconds of this movie.
So before we get to the last 45 seconds of the movie, the final come together thing is like the end of the allegory they're going for, right? They resolved their marriage and they became the one person. There was a line that Dave Franco's character said earlier in the movie when they're arguing about whether or not they actually want to go through with the marriage, and they're talking about breaking up. And he was like, if I, have a near-death experience, I don't want somebody else's life to flash in front of my eyes. And it was sort of like a little hint towards the future symbiosis that they were going to go through, right? But that's also, that's marriage, right? If you think about it, if you spend, the longer you spend with a person, the more your lives just become intertwined as like one life rather than two separate lives, right? So it's a pretty spot on allegory. I do think it was kind of a they're painting marriage in a negative light, which I don't agree with the allegory, but like I said earlier, whether or not it's a message that I agree with or not, if it's well done, I appreciate it.
Oh, see, I don't think they were painting it in a negative light. I don't think they were painting it positive or negative. I think they were painting it, in my interpretation, you need to figure your shit out. Is this the person you want to be with? Are you able to come together and live as one? Or are you going to be the cave troll where you're still together and,
maybe. Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the way I interpreted it. I don't think I think they're saying there's not a right or wrong answer overall, but there's a right or wrong answer for you.
Yeah.
Like in your situation.
But I guess, if it's sort of like that, one has to submit to the other though, right? Would be the message, right? Because one person has to, right? Like she ended up doing the thing for.
He's the one who submits. If that was the way that you're going for it, it's about not lying to yourself and resenting somebody. Like for his character arc, he was resenting her for stuff that it was actually his fault. Right? Like, and I know that's what the director was going for. Like his whole thing was in his relationship, he was almost like imposter syndrome, or he felt like he wasn't going where he needed to go because of his partner or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was on him. It's not on the other person. That person wasn't holding him back. He's holding himself back, or you're just not good enough to do that thing you want. And you know what? It's not the other person's fault. It's just you don't have the skills to do that thing. So I think there's multiple layers to this, like how you want to interpret it. But
yeah, I do think they left it somewhat ambiguous and open for interpretation there. Yeah, probably with the director's own personal spin on it. But yeah, I liked it. I mean, I don't remember having a serious problem with the last 45. It was kind of goofy, I guess.
I hated it. I absolutely hated it.
Probably didn't need it.
Well, I think if that's the reveal you want to make, the wrong characters are coming to see that reveal.
Yeah.
Because if you're fusing with that person and you're trying to figure out how you're going to go forward as one at that point, you're not going to start with still having that Sunday dinner with your parents.
Right.
You're going to call that off.
Yeah.
That's getting canceled.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I can't explain this.
First thing you cancel.
First thing you cancel. So the person it should have been was the guy that was also fused together. Right? Like that's who the dinner should have been, or the lunch should have been. It should have been those two. Like the two groups.
Maybe.
Of people.
Maybe. I think it would have been better if it was left a little bit less explicit at the end there, and you kind of just got a shot of the one like androgynous person kind of like walking by the screen, and they don't explain it. You just kind of have to put it together for yourself.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, I think I was fine with it until the person spoke, and then I was just like, that ended up being goofy. If they just opened the door and it was just the reveal of like the kind of fused face, then I think I would have been fine with it. But as soon as like, hey, I was like, oh, that's not a funny scene.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just think like it's a nonsensical approach to a movie that did a lot of things really well, where like we know that the first thing anyone would do is cancel that lunch while you figured out what's going forward, how you're going to explain this or not explain this or whatever. You're not going to have that lunch the next day. So that's my problem with it. It's like you can have the reveal, it's just not with the parents. Like have it with somebody else.
Agreed.
So that being said, do we want to throw some scores on this movie?
Yeah, I got this at a 4.6. I thought this movie had a lot more strengths than weaknesses. I don't even know if it really had any weaknesses. There were some things that we picked apart here and there, but they were really minor. I thought it was strong. The allegory was strong. I love philosophical crossovers with horror. I think those two fields really work well together, kind of like horror and comedy. This was not a horror comedy. It was body horror, which is also one of my favorite subgenres of horror. So really, really effective, and the scares were good. And it's, like I said earlier, one of the few movies that I've watched recently that actually gave me the creeps. And that's not to knock the other movies that have been out recently. I'm just so desensitized to horror that it doesn't really, do what it used to for me. But this one did.
Yeah, I never foresaw us all turning into complete sociopaths, but that's what this will do to you. I actually had this one at a 4.6, and I'm not going to change it just to be different. So I have this one exactly the same as Dave. Makes it easier on your graphics. I thought it was interesting, enjoyable, extremely well acted. I can't stress that enough. It was an absolute home run. I can't think of a bad actor in the movie. And the story was interesting. I didn't really know where it was going. I know I had kind of brought up that there was a predictable moment, but that was it for me. There wasn't anything else that was predictable in my opinion. So overall, it was a solid watch. It's a good movie.
I just thought of how this should have ended. I
saw it hit you.
Do you remember she's having the phone call with her friend and her
Mhm.
friend's like, I'm gonna come there.
Oh yeah, that's
It
it.
should have ended with the friend showing up and the door opening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
because they didn't
end.
do anything with that.
Yep.
That's the end of the movie.
Oh shit. Yeah. Damn. Write them a letter.
4-3 for me. They lose a half star just for the ending. The last 45 seconds alone for me. Then my
I
other
was
little
up
nitpicks.
until the very end of this movie. I'm like, this could be a 5 or strong 4, 8, 4, 9. And then it was just the ending. I was like, well,
Well,
they shouldn't
Rob,
have spoke.
a half a point will get you down to 4-5, not 4-3.
Yeah,
Are you
but then
using the Fibonacci sequence to do the math?
I am. No, I said, but then the other little nitpicks get me
Gotcha.
down to a 4-3. So that's why I'm gonna put it at that score. But God, that's the ending. How do we set that up? I know they were setting up the parents thing too, but just get rid of it. You set up the friend thing. Do the friend thing.
Yeah.
The friend shows up.
I bet if you presented that idea to them, he'd be like, "Ah, shit, yeah, you're probably right."
Yeah, I feel like it as well. Anyways, those are our scores for the movie together. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this movie. Give us a score on 1 to 5. Let us know what movies you want to see us review. We're not doing Hip Hop Witch yet. We've gotten that request 15 times. So we'll do it at some point maybe, but we'll catch you next time here at HTS Reviews. Peace.
It's HTGS reviews, but you did great.
I didn't say
You just said HTS. It's hometown stories.
Hometown stories.
We're scrapping the ghosts. We're just going to tell you stories.
That's all we're going to do now. We talked
Ran
about
out of
philosophers for 30 minutes. So